Pam Haessly, the Executive Director of Novato Community Television, NCTV, formerly known as NPAT. We have a special member named Shirley Graves who has been hosting and producing a show called Public Advocate for over 20 years. That's over 200 shows. So NCTV staff felt it was time to pay homage to Shirley. And with tremendous help from Shirley's daughters, we have put together a special best of tribute. Her 3 daughters are here in the studio to moderate this special edition of Public Advocate. We hope you enjoy.
Thank you, Pam. It's wonderful to be here. And I want to say a thank you to Pam Haessly and Nick Logan and Novato Community Television for all the work and all the good work they put into this project, but also all the years they've spent with our mother on Public Advocate. I'm Mary Alberigi, and on my left is my sister Roberta Moore, and my sister on my right, Courtney Morhen. And we're Shirley's 3 daughters, and we're honored to be here, and we're grateful for this opportunity to celebrate our mother. She's a remarkable woman, and we've learned many important values from her that we're looking forward to sharing with you. Throughout our lives, our mother has always encouraged us to pursue our dreams, and she's also devoted her life to helping others pursue their dreams. Her TV program, Public Advocate, is an example of her work to help others. Her goal has always been to bring attention and support to groups and people in Marin and to share stories of people making a difference. She first appeared on Public Advocate in 1996 as a guest with Betty Machado, who originally hosted the show. Later, she co-hosted with Betty, and in 1999, she continued the show herself as host when Betty unexpectedly passed away, and she's kept it going for all these years. Courtney, I know you were involved in the show early on with Mother. Maybe you could tell us about that.
There was a time when Betty Machado did her show live, and she would take questions on the air, and Mom would sit in the back and take the calls and write the questions down and then bring them to the set for Betty or the guest to answer. And then when she began co-hosting, I took over the role of answering the phones and bringing the questions out for her. But you know, her career started a long time ago. When she was in high school, she wrote a column for the Independent Journal on the social activities in high school, of Santa Fe High School. And she also, at some point, was on a little local radio program when she read announcements.
Oh, that's cool. She was very good with the guests she had on her show and always made sure to give them videotapes. Eventually it progressed to DVDs, thank you. And always got articles in the paper, and I know you did a lot of the press releases for her.
Yes, in the beginning she wrote the press releases herself, and she would drive them to the various newspapers, and then later she would write them, give them to me, and I would type them up and email them, and then we just began typing them. I would type them up and email them all out, and it was a lot of fun doing that with her.
And in the early days, of course, she had to drive the videotapes down to the various stations too.
That was fun too.
Yeah.
So from a really young age, she taught us about getting involved in volunteering, and it was just such a valuable experience to learn the importance of giving back and contributing. I can remember one story I have is one of my first memories is volunteering at the Haunted House for the Children's Home Society, and that was an organization that helped children be adopted. I just remember making cotton candy and sodas and selling them. I think I was maybe 10.
Yeah.
And so she taught us really valuable lessons about giving back and getting involved very early on.
That was down at the old county courthouse before it burned down in Santa Fe. Remember that? And then they had the haunted house in the jail.
And then they had to move it, I think.
Yes.
But yes.
Yeah, no, she always had us volunteering. I remember being a model for the Northgate group at the Marin Art and Garden Center. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was always being involved.
I remember stuffing envelopes and helping her collect signatures for various causes.
Writing letters.
And writing letters. And she always wanted us to get involved and stand up for what was right and to help out people.
I thought everybody did that.
Yes. Actually, my first memory of volunteering is knocking on doors for a political candidate. Do you remember that? So we were passing out flyers. I think I was 8. And so you were probably 11. And we were knocking on doors, passing out flyers.
Yeah.
So I have many memories. she taught us how to be an upstander, not a bystander. And if you don't know the meaning of the words, you know, an upstander gets involved and speaks up for what's right and defends people. And I've passed that legacy on to my daughter, and we stand up for people.
Absolutely.
Because we learned that very young.
Exactly. I remember going to meetings with her a lot, and I remember watching the people with her, how they would, everyone was so happy to see her and talk with her, and how she treated everybody else. And I use that as a model in my life, helping people, you know, looking out for them, standing up for what was right. It was very important to her, and it's very valuable. It made a big impact on me as a child and as I grew up. And I remember collecting signatures with her for a campaign. It was to stop trophy hunting of mountain lions. It was in 1989, and we helped get it on the ballot, and the voters approved the ban, and she was really proud of that. And getting us involved, it was very important for her.
One of the shows that's very dear to all of us is a show our mother did in 2006, and it featured our brother Gordon, Ness, and who passed away in October of 2014. And I watched that show, you know, many times, and it's wonderful to see them banter back and forth. And she was so proud of him and all that, you know, he was able to accomplish. And he was talking about a program called Oxford House.
I am originally from the Bay Area, and I moved to Virginia in 1999. I am an alcoholic, and I am in recovery now, but in 2002, after a long period of sobriety, I underwent a series of surgeries that involved a lot of exposure to pain medication, and that eventually was something I thought I could handle but could not. It led to a relapse to alcohol again, and that's when I was introduced to Oxford House. It was not my first choice, but doing a little research, I knew I wasn't in need of a full treatment program, but I also didn't want to be on my own, and Oxford House provides that kind of a transition environment. Probably the biggest single key decision they made was to eliminate any kind of time limit. Their decision was people recover at different rates, and as long as you remained free from alcohol or drugs, you could stay in an Oxford House until you were ready to leave. And I think this is probably the single biggest key to Oxford's success. Again, there was recently a study, a long-term study released by DePaul University that confirmed what we already knew, and that is we are the single most successful organization of our type in the field of alcoholism and drug addiction treatment. Their recovery rates for our residents were between 65 and 87% on these two studies, which are, for those of you who know anything about numbers in this field, very, very good.
She was so supportive of us in our endeavors, so if we wanted to, we, like Gordon, could be on the show, and she was always very supportive. We were taught we could do whatever we wanted, and it was so wonderful to have us all together because our brother lived in Virginia, so this was a really special memory we'll always have.
It was a wonderful tribute to him, and I know that after he passed away, we gave the DVD to Oxford House, and I'm sure that it's still inspiring, and people today, I'm sure they're playing it, and that would mean a lot to him as well, to know
Absolutely.
that his message is still getting out there.
And a fun show, of course, was using, well, my mom and dad are both antique collectors. We grew up with them bringing all sorts of interesting books and gadgets home. My mom loved household gadgets and personal gadgets, from silver toast holders to button hooks to bed warmers. And then she'd study all the different silversmiths' stamps and engraving markings so she'd know where it came from, and she would share that with us. And our dad focused kind of on world leaders and events and World War I and II and Winston Churchill. And he collected, figurines and busts and political pins. And then he started zeroing in on toys. lead soldiers, tin buildings, farm animals and equipment, Tootsie toys. And of course, his other passion was The Wizard of Oz and the 14-book series about the Land of Oz by L. Frank Baum. We all grew up reading these books as well. So in 2007, I was the director of the Marine History Museum, and we produced an exhibit featuring my dad's toys called Time to Play. And I know that's one that's going to be shown, and that was fun for him to do, and fun for us to be part of.
And in being perfectly honest and full admittance here, this is my daughter. But that has nothing to do with why we're here, of course, because she is the director of this museum, and Mary's going to tell us, welcome us to the museum, and tell us a little bit about the background and the current exhibit.
Great, thank you very much. I'm glad to have you here. You're in the historic Boyd Gatehouse in San Rafael, and this has been the home of the Marine History Museum since the late 1950s. This home is actually one of Marin's fabulous architectural jewels, built in 1879 as a guest house for the family that occupied what is now the Boyd Park and the Elks Club. So the Marine History Museum operates 2 sites, one here in the Boyd Gatehouse where we have programs, offices, a library, and exhibits, which you'll see today, and also a collections facility in San Rafael where we have our collections staff and we have all of our artifacts and memorabilia. Interns come in from the colleges around here, from Dominican, from College of Marin, and they work with us on preserving and caring for the collection.
I've been working for the museum here for almost 6 or 7 years now, and so I've really learned a lot about designing exhibits, writing the text and the material, pulling together the artifacts, and so it takes a lot of skills to pull the exhibit together. It's almost like producing a show. Just the show must go on no matter what. So we bring in a lot of different talents. I'm not the only one who works on the show. We have a lot of other people who help us, and so we have really enjoyed putting this exhibition together. This Time to Play Early 20th Century Toys is a survey of toys made popular from the early 1900s through the 1950s. And what we're going to do next is look at some of the cases, and we're going to look at some of the certain toys, talk a little bit about their history. So would you like to start that now?
I certainly would.
These toys represent early comic strips, radio, TV, later on TV, and movies. So you have something like Uncle Wiggily, tin wind-up, or Popeye and olive oil, which is also tin. When you wind it up, it's called a jigger, so they shake. And these are toys that children would have been very familiar with because they saw them in their comic strips and radio, and then later moved to TV and movies.
I think it was neat to have all 3 of you on the show together. I know that really meant a lot to Mom, and it was a great way to honor Dad with his toy collecting. I mean, it really meant a lot to him, and he had a lot, so it was really nice to see everything out there.
I think we played with a lot of his toys.
Well, it's funny to bring that up because I remember he bought this little cannon. Do you remember the cannon?
Yeah.
That you could put the balls in and shoot them? And remember, Bert would come over and visit and play with it. So he actually had toys that were fun to play with that others would enjoy as well.
Well, he had I loved his farm animals, and I used to play with him all the time. And I remember I'd take him down, and I put him back, and he came home from work one day, and I heard him yelling, "Who moved the duck?" I was like, how did he know?
He knows.
He
To this day,
knows.
he knows.
Where he bought it, how much he paid for it.
Yes.
Who made it?
Where it is
what
in
year it
his
is? Yeah,
Yeah, that-
exactly. He does know that.
Absolutely.
But that was a great show. It was just a great. It was a great show. It was a great way to, it was just a lot of fun to see all the toys, and some that we had seen growing up, and some that we didn't remember that he had. So it was fun to see them.
Right. And then we were touching earlier kind of on Mother's activism and helping others, and animals is a big part of our mother's life. And she's, of course, when we were younger, it was wonderful. She was always a soft touch. When we wanted to bring home a kitten, of course we could keep it. But her love of animals extends beyond her home, and she, to this day, she advocates for animals, believing, you know, all of them deserve kindness and respect and should be protected from abuse or neglect.
People need to realize that you know, it's not so much a commercial transaction as it truly is an adoption, even with a reputable breeder. You should be asked the tough questions, and you should be making a commitment of a lifetime. And you know, there's a whole lot more that goes into this than the aesthetics of what your dog or cat looks like, if it's a beauty or not.
Oh, tell me about it.
And yet for a dog, that's an alien kind of thing. Dogs don't hug each other. So they have to be willing and able to accept being hugged by children and by people who really like them.
I have two people from WildCare here. Well, actually, I have three who are going to be introduced.
So I'm Allison Hermance, and I am in charge of communications at WildCare, which means that I get to spend all of my time talking about this amazing, incredible, wonderful organization. And it's really just one of the best organizations in the entire Marin County and in the entire Bay Area. And I'm really excited to have this opportunity to talk with you about it and introduce everyone to WildCare. Before I talk more about WildCare, however, we need to introduce our other guests. I'll let one of them introduce herself.
I'll introduce both of us. I'm Beth Ridout, and I am a WildCare volunteer. I've been with WildCare for about 2 years now, and I work both in the clinic with the other patient animals, but also I work most importantly with the ambassador animals, the education animals that are non-releasable and that we are able to take to schools and help other people understand when they come to visit WildCare what happens with some of these animals and why they can't be released and what we can do differently to live well with wildlife. And this is Trill. Trill, we actually have 3 ladies here today. Trill is a female western screech owl. And she is about 2 years old, and she lives with us at WildCare because she's not able to be released. She does not have depth perception enough to hunt. So she spends her life being treated as well as we possibly can and replicating what she would get in the wild and educating people.
We don't have the Humane Society or the Cat Connection here, but what I do have is about a minute of a look back. 2 months ago, John Reese of the Humane Society came with a little dog that had been rescued from the puppy mill in Hollister, which they got about 50 dogs from that unfortunate place. And we're going to show you just a few seconds of the little dog that was on 2 months ago.
And yes, hi. This little adorable girl is Mimi, and I'll come down closer to her level so she feels closer to the ground. Mimi was part of another rescue. Mimi came to us from an animal rescue that happened at a puppy mill down in Hollister, California. We helped out the Santa Clara Valley Humane Society and some local shelters down by Hollister by taking 24 small animals, like Mimi here, mostly poodles, a couple of cockapoos, and some papillons.
And now 2 months later, I'd like to show you my dog Mimi and her cut and her designer haircut here. And she's a real success story from the Humane Society. And I'd just like to say that in their absence, they're there for adoptions between Tuesday through Sunday, and they're in Ignacio, and you can call.
She was instrumental in ending live animal circuses here in Marin. She was an opponent of the Buck Center early on because she was worried about the possibility of animal experimentation. And she's a longtime supporter of the Marin Humane Society, now Marin Humane, and she donated funds to create a lovely little room for people to get familiar with the pet they were considering of adopting, and she called it the Argent Room, after her beloved cat. And I think you helped hold some of the animals she brought.
She would, a lot of times she would have somebody from the Humane Society or Cat Caring Connection would come, and they would bring an animal that was, or maybe a few animals that were available for adoption, and I would hold the animals, and the people would talk about the animal and the characteristic. And it was Mom's way of getting me on the show too. She really wanted to get me on the show, but I was always a little too shy, so I liked being in the background, and holding the animals was fun for me.
Yeah. But animals are key.
And think about where we've come with animal rights and treating animals humanely. Every step of the way, she was ahead of her time.
Yes.
She was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She was.
we'd be hearing about things from our mother, you know, red dye number 2 in meat, fluoride, and animal rights.
Now
Yeah, she actually helped me get a job at Marin Health Food Store when I was 16. And it just, to this day, she taught me how to read labels. And I mean, I still to this day know how to read a label and know what foods to avoid. And she was so far ahead of her time.
They were both into recycling before recycling became so big as it is now. They were both into recycling. I mean, we had different garbage cans for everything.
And our other thing, education. I mean, believes everyone needs an education. And she set an example by returning to college to earn her AA degree at College of Marin. And remember,
right.
we all went to College of Marin. We even took classes together.
We did.
When our mother returned.
Well, it was the 3 of us.
Yeah.
He was always a good student, on to UC Santa Barbara.
After College of Marin.
I'm sorry, here I am president of College of Marin alumni, and I just kind of skated over that, yes. All of my children went to College of Marin.
We all went to College of Marin at one time or another, but she also went to Dominican.
And she went on to get her degree, her master's degree in psychology, graduating summa cum laude from Dominican. And there she was the president of Nu Alpha, and that was an association that encouraged women to return to school later in life.
I think, overwhelming response that we receive from Pathway students when they complete the program is that it was so unlike their prior school experiences, whether that be other universities or colleges or the community college level. And that's something where if that's your only source of experience and that's what you're drawing from it, you may be a little hesitant to go back to school. But when you get to Dominican, you realize your peers are very similar to you. They're serious students. They don't want to waste their time, and they certainly don't want to be in a classroom with other people while their time is being wasted. And their professors really view them as peers. It's more of a peer relationship. And so you have a mentor, you have an instructor, you have a peer all in one, and it just makes for such a rich experience. And it really is a different experience than most people had when they were 18 entering into the college or university system. So they find it to be very enjoyable and very doable, and they're highly successful.
And something fun is that Gordon, Mother, and I graduated and received our AA degrees on the stage together at College of Marin. But that's a big thing.
I used to go to classes with her at night. I used to go to school with her at College of Marin when she went there at nighttime, and I go to Dominican College with her. I go to classes with her. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool. And politics, of course.
Yes.
She hosted, on this show, she hosted many conversations with the political leaders from both sides, Democratic and Republican. She wanted to get the input, all perspectives.
She was very fair.
She was very good about that. And like you said, she encouraged us to always be active and be informed and take action.
In her shows, it was really important for her to get, she wanted the issues to go out to the voters. She wanted to know what was in different areas, and then she wanted to summarize the outcome of the election. She wanted everyone to know what happened, and it was very important to her to get that out.
Only in an even-numbered year when we also have the partisan offices like governor and the statewide offices. So big ballot, big election.
Yes.
And there won't be any more in odd-numbered years. Next year will be the first time we don't have any elections unless there's a special little tiny election.
Oh dear.
Yeah. But back in 2020, we'll have another one like this. We'll have 2 like this, the primary and the general. And the primary is getting moved up to March instead of June in 2020. So that's a little, about less than a year.
Well, California wants to play.
Eventually, we are going to have a national ID card. I know people.
We may.
Because there are lots of reasons involving security and terrorism, as well as people who are illegally voting. And I think I see nothing wrong with asking people to present. Of course, if you're going to have an open mail system, and there's a lot of pressure on to do away with the expense of running polls and having just do it by mail, that's another matter again entirely, because obviously you don't have to show identification to mail in a mailing. So there is, I believe there's more voter fraud than anybody wants to admit.
I'd like to reach a mutual understanding so we all know that we are at least from the same base. He and I differ significantly in our opinions and feelings, but we can't disagree with where we come from. And this nation was created as a nation of laws. we had a Declaration of Independence that stated that all men are created equal. We hold these truths are self-evident. All men are created equal.
And there is value in both political parties when they work together. Each party stands for something very important that if the other party would adopt, the world would be a better place. And she helped make those, like she championed environmentalism, which is more of a democratic platform, but she was also more fiscally conservative, which is more of a Republican platform. And if the two could work together, we'd have a better society. And she helped bring that to life.
Yeah. Well, she did it also in all the community groups she was in. I mean, she was in a lot of groups that, you know, promoted women in politics, or, you know, she served on the Belmar Keys Community Services District. She was elected to that position. The Health Council of Marin. Back in the 60s, she was in the Mamie Eisenhower Library Project. I mean, so this was, you know, all her life she was involved.
Right.
And she usually rose to a leadership position in each of these groups.
Right.
So it's,
in the 70s, it was fluoride, keeping fluoride out of the water. And Marin is one of the few counties left that doesn't have fluoride, or didn't when I last looked, have fluoride in the water.
Fluoride is, yes, in southern Marin, but not northern Marin.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I remember that from 1972.
Yeah.
She was involved in keeping fluoride out of the water.
I just remember when I lost my friends to a drunk driver on my 17th birthday. Mom got involved with the local chapter of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD, and she later became president of the chapter. And I volunteered there, and one afternoon, a group of us, we all went to the Golden Gate Bridge. Mom had us wearing signs that said, "Don't drink and drive." And after a while, a CHP officer stopped us and said that it was too dangerous to be where we were holding the signs, even if it was for a good message. So he had us move to a safer spot. And 19 years later, I married the captain of the Marin area CHP office. Mom always laughs about that.
Takes credit for it somehow. Yeah, so I think that it's wonderful that we get to have this whole tribute to Mother in all of her shows and be able to see the breadth of her work. That's what's really been amazing to all of us. I mean, to really see how many lives she touched, you know, in addition to our own.
Yes. And because she was so active in volunteering, she taught us to volunteer and give back. And so I've been an active volunteer the rest of my life. I still am. And I know you guys do as well. And Gordon too, all four of us.
Always volunteered, and I worked in nonprofits all my life, and that's just felt natural.
Most recently, about 7-8 years ago, I was over at Autodesk and had an opportunity to rethink what I wanted to do later in life, and I went back to school and I got a master's degree at USC in gerontology.
Oh my.
That's the study of aging.
Aging, yes.
And during that, the first class I took, there was a healthcare delivery models, and they just talked about this new concept called the village movement. And I thought, what an interesting thing. It was basically a grassroots type of movement whereby neighbors would help neighbors so that everybody who wanted to could possibly live longer in their own homes and communities. So then I came back to Marin. I knew somebody at Jazz by the Bay, and they happened to say that they were getting involved with the village movement here in Marin. And I thought, what a coincidence.
Well, yes.
And did a project for them, and before I knew it, I came over to Marin Villages and have been the executive director for the last 7 years.
Marin Center for Independent Living is really unique in the sense that we serve the community only in Marin, and that's a community that's aging, and that's a community that is aging into disability. So the services, the work that we provide are really about ensuring that individuals, whether they're a youth, whether they're an older adult, whether they have a physical disability or a sensory disability or an intellectual disability, we provide them the services and supports so they can live safely and independently in the community, in their own homes, and have a good quality of life.
Part of the reason why I want to give back to my community is because I was afforded a chance to live my dream, to go to college and play college football at Cal and then go on to the NFL. And part of that's possible because I had great teachers and coaches and great relationships with my teammates growing up. And that's really one of the most important reasons that I like to give back to my community.
Well, we used to really look up at those athletes when I was in high school. I can remember that. We were just awed by them. My goodness. You go to the game and you collect the program and there's these names in print there.
Yeah.
You were one of them undoubtedly here, huh?
I grew up in Novato, as most people know. The audience, a lot of people in the audience know me. And my parents moved to Novato in 1940 when I was 4 years old. But what my claim to fame on the theater is the fact that I went to the opening when I was 10 years old in 1946 and fell in love with the theater ever since. And I've wanted to see this thing rebuilt and refurbished. And my background, I'm chair of the board of directors to make this happen. We're well on our way to doing that, and it's going to happen finally for Novato.
Well, this year was really the most incredible show we've ever had as far as a holiday spirit and involved with the kids being involved, and they were given assignments to do a Christmas song in the beginning of the show and a few songs, but then also to honor Dionne Warwick, the great legendary artist, came to be as part of the show with her granddaughter, Cheyenne Elliott. So then these kids were able then to sing for Dionne. And then that interchange is what I love the most. That the legendary artist is touched by these children, their pure love offering to sing their very best, to do their very best. The children are just to the moon to meet Dionne and to be in that world. So I really get off on making that happen.
Wow, and these are just the highlights of all the work our mother has done over these more than 20 years. Pam.
I'm really impressed with how much work you put into this and how much your mom has done over the years. I know quite a bit about her and how active she was, but I learned a lot today. And the fluoride in the water, clear back then. I just heard of that topic, maybe 10 years ago. So you're right that your mom was always way ahead of her time. Why do you think that she got so involved? Why was it so important to her that she volunteered, that she became president, that she stayed so busy in the community, and she was still able to raise 3 daughters and a son?
So I think it was that she couldn't not do it, but I want to tell a story about her that I think might bring some light to that. When I was very young, she told me about one of her first jobs at a bank where she used to train her manager. And then they would be her manager and make more money. And this happened repeatedly in the same job. So she was always very capable. She could get press for any topic she ever wanted to get press for. And I mean, those of us, like I had a marketing company, it's hard. That's not easy. And so part of it was she was just so capable. And so she couldn't not do it. But then the other part of it was she is an upstander who fights for what she believes in. And when she believes in something, she has to do it.
I get that. That makes sense. Very passionate about so many topics, though.
Yeah, she's interested in everything.
And definitely seems
and everybody.
Yeah. She's an advocate for women. And
yeah, she always wanted to promote and support someone or their organization, their work, their efforts. And she treated everybody with kindness and courtesy, dignity and respect. I mean, it was just something that I took away from her. She was just, she was an inspiration.
Well, one thing I actually learned was that I didn't realize that she is the one, because I'm an animal lover. That's the bond that Shirley and I have mostly. I mean, television plus the animals. And so I was really excited to hear that she stopped the live animals in the circus, because I was very much a proponent for that as well, but she made it happen. That's incredible.
Absolutely.
So can I tell you a couple stories about cats, by the way, since we had that love? One day she came in to do her show, and she always walked up to my desk afterwards to say a few words, and I had this sweater on and black cat. She and I loved our black cats. And she stopped and she goes, where did you get that shirt? No, I mean, where did you get that sweater? She wouldn't let me do anything else until I told her where I got the sweater. And so I told her where I got it. And she's like, where's that? Where's that? And so anyway, I think that maybe...
I did. I called the store. I had them put it on hold. I got her 2 of them, actually. So I went and picked them up.
That's why I recognize the sweater.
She wears it. She loves that sweater.
Me too. And then the cat up on the shelf back there, we decorated my desk for Halloween, and same thing, she came back up. She just seems to know to gravitate towards cats. And she'd say, where did you get that? And I said, oh, across the street. Really? It was like $5. So I hope she eventually got one.
She did. She did. I bought her one.
Well, could you share with us some of the behind the scenes of the making of this tribute video? Because you had to, all of you, I think, had to somehow get these videos in order to be able, for us to be able to show them without her knowing.
Right.
How'd you do that?
Quite an assignment. Because Mother guards her videotapes very closely, and they're all in the cabinets behind where she sits all day.
And she's very inquisitive.
Very
Yeah, well, I know. So did you get caught ever?
No, well, not really. I mean, I went very early one morning and borrowed a number of the tapes that I brought to Nick so that he could, you know, transition them to DVD. And I know Courtney went there. And
I did go over there. I was a little bit more obvious. I brought my husband so he could talk with them, and I took all of her tapes and DVDs and out of the shelves, and I took pictures of all of them. And she did catch me at one time, and she said I was making a mess. And I said, well, I'm just trying to take pictures of your shows so I can make a list of them. And she said, oh, okay. So she left the room, and I finished my job and put them all back.
Very clever.
It was phenomenal, though, going through all these shows and actually typing up this 8-page list of well, almost 250 shows over all the years, and seeing who she interviewed, and I've seen most of the shows, and I know you worked on a number of them. And I was on a couple of them with some of the groups I volunteer with. So it's wonderful to see that legacy of hers.
Well, she sure is proud of her daughters and Gordon. She talked very fondly of all of you, and still does, but we haven't seen her in a little while. But yeah, we've upgraded the studio, so we don't even have DVDs, really the capacity to do that anymore, print the labels, and we certainly didn't have a way to convert the VHS tapes to digital. So I really want to give a shout out to my staff person, Nick Logan. He would take the VHS tapes home because he did have that equipment to be able to do that. So he spent countless hours, as all 3 of you have done as well. So I really sincerely mean, I thank you so much for doing this. It just felt like the right time to acknowledge your 20 years, 250 videos.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Well, we're so grateful for what you've done too, because this is a lot of work going through all those shows, and to honor our mother that way. I'm very proud of her. Yes. She's a role model she's 87 years old and still she has a show scheduled.
Yes, she does. In fact, I have a message from her on my phone now or two.
So, you know.
And I'll be doing the PR for her.
Right. And never stop, right?
Yes.
It's keep living and doing what you believe in.
Well, she's given us so very much in our lives, and we're really happy to be able to give this gift to her.
Yeah,
so
she's amazing.
We appreciate this opportunity very much.
Well, Shirley, on behalf of the NCTV Board of Directors and staff, we really hope that you enjoyed this special tribute, and we'll cherish it for years. Your daughters and staff here has really put a lot of heart and soul into it. We really want you to cherish that. And thank you especially for supporting community television all these years. That's really, really important as well.
Absolutely.
She provided programming for us and good topics.
That's true.
So we really value and appreciate that. So NCTV looks forward to many more shows, Shirley. Thank you.
We love you, Mom.
Love you.